There are two types of games, finite and infinite. James P. Carse says that finite games have a beginning, an ending, and happen within a set space. They follow a script, and those who play them play against each other. The goal of a finite game is to win, because the reward is a title. By gaining titles, you attain power, which allows you to control others. Then there's the infinite game, a game with no ending and no objective. While finite games are selective, anyone can play the infinite game. The infinite game is unpredictable, and those who play with each other. The goal of the infinite game is to continue playing. Chess, for example, is a finite game. So is basketball, so is a political campaign, so is war. Learning, on the other hand, would be part of the infinite game. Art and relationships would fall under the infinite game as well. Everything we do as participants of a finite or infinite game. Only finite games can occur within other games, however. Going to college is a finite game, and taking exams would be a finite game within a finite game. Before we explore the application of these ideas further, we have to understand who plays the games. The player is any individual who chooses to participate in games. Controlled machines cannot be players. Every person has what Carse refers to as a genius about them. Roughly speaking, it is the spirit of individuality within us all, but not everyone is in touch with and expresses their spirit. Play is considered any interaction between players, even if that interaction is a player avoiding contact with others. But where does play occur? According to Carse, finite games occur within a world or in front of an audience. Audience members are anyone who watches others play, including the players within the game. Infinite games, on the other hand, are not bound by space or time and do not have an audience. The two types of games, the players and their exchanges within them, lay the foundation for Carse's philosophy of life. There's far more to discuss, but today I will study the trend of finite versus infinite play throughout history. For some more context, Carse defines evil as the act of imposing a title you did not earn, mainly the act of physical or mental conquest of other players, an act unique to finite play. But he never declares that we should transform all of our finite play into infinite play, or that all finite play is evil. However, there seems to be a pattern of finite play increasing with humanity's growth in size and movement towards freedom. We can explore how the balance of finite and infinite play has shifted throughout history by taking a look at society versus culture, the idea of death, consumption and waste, and machines versus nature. For starters, society is a finite game according to Carse logic. Carse claims that society is a manifestation of power, meaning the result of winners of titles exercising control. To expand that idea further, society is the rise of a hierarchy amongst players as a result of finite play. For example, Carse points out that modern society is primarily composed of property, economy, and the laws surrounding those two. In other words, about chasing titles. Owner of a house, building, millionaire, lawyer, president, the list goes on. However, even when we look back at hunters and gatherers, society took the shape of roles that people played within their family and within their tribe. The idea of roles is also considered finite play because many of your actions become defined. A father or mother is expected or scripted to act a certain way. Thus, in two different worlds, a similar structure appears, that being the finite game that is society. But infinite play is also found throughout history. Carse says that culture is an enterprise of mortals disdaining to protect themselves against surprise. Basically, culture is always changing but continuous. One aspect of culture is art. Art is the story behind the canvas. From ancient carvings to modern graffiti, some ideas and stories within art are timeless and represent a form of infinite play. Carse points out that all infinite play is paradoxical because for you to keep playing, you actually need to play for others instead of for yourself. Our society and our culture reflect a balance of finite and infinite play that scales with humanity. Despite these ongoing games, the player eventually stops. We can't play games forever. Because we are mortal beings, we can't play games forever. The titles we gained when we were alive live on for us and give us pseudo-immortality, the life of our titles. Everyone will be forgotten eventually, but the greater your titles, the longer you live on through them. When we look to the past, people rarely moved up in life financially. Only a few people held public titles. It isn't until more recently that society has been structured in such a way that those less fortunate can become rich. Now more than ever is the idea of attaining titles popular. Through education, business, social media, sports, and so on, people can acquire titles to become pseudo-immortal. However, in opening the doors to everyone, only few attain enough titles great enough to enter history. Carse mentions that by seeking to live forever, we ensure interactions with others will end, introducing a contradiction. This is a characteristic of all finite games. They are contradictory. Perhaps time has changed us, or perhaps it has only revealed our true desires. Like the idea of trying to play against death, the next concept is also flawed. Similar to the trend of seeking immortality only never to reach it, consumerism and waste production have scaled up with population growth. Carse argues that consumption is waste because consuming is the process of turning useful resources into non-useful resources. You cannot have one without the other. As humanity has grown, the finite game of consuming has increased more rapidly, whereas more primitive societies learn to live with nature. Nowadays, we compete in the finite game of attaining property for the resources it may contain, only to produce waste or property nobody wants to own. The contradiction of this finite game. Waste doesn't just consist of objects, but people too. Somebody has to lose finite games, and given there are many people now, there are people who never win. Society breeds consumerism, producing waste. If current trends continue, the finite game that is consumption will only increase with humanity, or maybe AI will solve our problems. It is no secret that even early humans learned how to use tools to their advantage, and as time progressed, we began creating machines to help our efforts. Carse claims to use the machine for control is to be controlled by the machine. Because using machinery places us in the middle of a scripted process like driving a car, using a lawnmower, or adjusting settings, using machines is a form of finite play. As machines become more complex or efficient, they require less from us as individuals, and therefore when we use them, we express ourselves less. If we follow this trend and peek over the horizon, we see the rise of artificial intelligence and potentially the merge between man and machine. At first glance, it seems like the trend of finite play overtaking infinite play appears once again. But if AI is free to act on its own, then maybe it will be capable of infinite play as well, the ability to be original. At the same time, we have never been more closely dependent on machines to live and thus controlled by machines. On top of that, AI may freely choose to control us, therefore bringing an end to all play. For now, the future remains unpredictable, and thus the possibility of infinite play stays alive. Viewing life through the lens of finite and infinite games allows us to recognize patterns that have existed within humanity for all of history. Everything we do from our first memory to our last breath is play within a finite or infinite game. However, the real takeaway is to continuously update your understanding of life. Carse paraphrases Marcel Proust, a French writer. The only true voyage would be not to travel through 100 different lands with the same pair of eyes, but to see the same land through 100 different pairs of eyes. Infinite play is maintained by originality, reinventing the past, and the constant search for truth. The beauty of viewing life as layers of games is the perspective it provides. Maybe we don't need to abandon our current goals, but learn to focus on them with each other. And although history seems to show us that finite play has become most of our play, self-awareness is the first step in becoming an infinite player.